So hello and welcome to our third, this time one-to-one interview this year. I welcome Walid Saba. He's an AI researcher and much more than that. Hi, Walid. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Great.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Sure. I'll let you introduce yourself. I just said you're an AI researcher, but very briefly, let the folks know what you're working on and what's your background briefly, please.
Okay, a quick run of my life. Right now I'm a senior research scientist at the Experiential Institute for Artificial Intelligence at Northeastern University. I've been in so many ways in AI for 3 decades. I lived through the first AI winter, so I'm an old cat. Pretty much my AI concentration has been language. Language and surrounding areas of, the periphery of language, which includes ontology, knowledge representation, reasoning, and all that. There was a while where I just worked as a software engineer. After all, I'm a computer scientist. That's when AI was a bad word. So I'm very excited that AI is again popular and has a lot of commercial and non-commercial interest. That because that's my passion. Although I think there's a lot of good, bad, and ugly going on in AI, which hopefully we can get into. I've been briefly in academia, in big research labs, AT&T Bell Labs, IBM Watson, and all the way to small startups with a bunch of young, crazy people. So I've done everything and everything in between. So that's who I am.
All right. Thanks, Walid. Yeah, so I found you in LinkedIn. I think it was making some fun about what the world is talking about since when is it, November or something, December, ChatGPT. And then I was reading up on your blogs and it made a lot of sense to me. So I thought, let's share this with more folks. So do you use ChatGPT for your work? Maybe start out with that.
No, not for work, no. But do we at work follow up and try to find the real story behind what's happening? Definitely. My work is I'm a research scientist in an institute that belongs to a university. So the university part of the institute is interested in ChatGPT as probably something that students might be able to use and so on. But on the research side, no, we are more interested in what is happening, what is ChatGPT, what are large language models, their limitations, their the true story. Well, I mean, we want to sift through the hype and get at really what is happening here. AGI, I mean, is that really true? I mean, now there are people saying we are so close to AGI and all that. We probably have a chance to get into that, but to actually use it at work as a tool that can help in anything serious, no.
Yeah. Sure. Getting serious, it was actually maybe a little bit a joke. So you took it lightly. So, but the other extreme, were you even shocked about then how this broke every technology adoption record, in fact, in history, right? How many, in what short amount of time, so many people used it and keep using it? Was that something that you felt like?
It was amazing. I mean, I have to admit that I was like I changed a few of my preconceived ideas about this because in the end, if many people think it's useful, it must be useful. Although I have a bit of Bertrand Russell in me, who once said, the fact that the vast majority of people believe in something is no indication whatsoever that it's not utterly ridiculous. So it's not always, I mean, now there's an entertainer who's selling tickets for $10,000. And I had to check out who this is because I listen to a completely different kind of music. So it doesn't matter if some person on earth pays $10,000 to hear music that I don't care about. So I guess what I'm saying is the fact that this created that much hype is no indication at all that it's the real thing. We have to be scientific about this. There are many factors. I don't want to get into ideological opinions here, but there are many factors behind why something is spreading like a virus. And unfortunately, it might have nothing to do with the science and technology, unfortunately, because it should, but that's not the case. So the fact that it got 1 million users in, I don't know, a couple of days, to me is like an interesting phenomenon, but no more. Scientifically, it doesn't translate into anything to me. I mean,
Sure.
There are people that see angels when they are walking. So, okay.
Okay, got it. But yeah, let's go a little deeper here now. Yeah, indeed, let's see how deep we can get. So can you summarize, of course, now not giving an hour or two speech, but that's why I say summarize some of the critique that, or you actually made also fun, and colleagues I saw, that's how I got your attention of you, about some of the shortcomings, of course, right? If you understand, like you do, how this thing is working in the background, then of course you can trick it into doing all kinds of really funny and silly things at the end of the day. And others might just experience this by chance. But can you summarize the critique about this and where you see deficiencies and are not so ultimately excited from a research standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, look, I just posted something which is going to be part of something bigger than I'm working on a big write-up. The ChatGPT, whether it's 4 or 3, they're almost the same. And I've tried both. I disagree that there's a huge improvement. They're more or less the same. You can get whatever you want to get from them. So if you're going to try them and you're impressed before you tried them because you are following that, you just love the stardom of the whole thing, then you're going to be impressed. But if you are a scientist who's trying to figure out, can we really understand language? I mean, I'm talking now cognitive science. I mean, was Chomsky and Gottlob Frege and Bertrand Russell, Immanuel Kant, were they all wrong? So if you're looking at this, it depends what you want to get from it. You can be easily impressed. You can be easily impressed and say, wow, this thing is, that's it, AI is here. And if you're a little bit deeper and you know how these things work and you know how difficult language is, and language is about the mind and cognition, and it's the holy grail, then you can easily also, I mean, every time I sit down with a test and I know it's going to fail, it never fails that it fails, because I know so I'm not looking for, write me a function that, although even in coding, I can make it look silly. But if you are a young kid who just took 2 Coursera courses, or I don't want to name companies, but whatever online course, in machine learning, and now you think you know the mind and cognition and you understand artificial intelligence, and you're just so excited about little knowledge that's dangerous, you can easily find it impressive, of course. And it is a monumental feat, by the way, I have to say. And in many places I've said, what they've done is not nothing. It's a huge. They proved something. They proved that scale matters. If I look at trillions of words and how they are combined together, I will figure out syntactic patterns of how language is used in everyday discourse. Okay, they proved that, which is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Now, if we want to go into another, okay, that has been done, and that has many good applications, by the way. So this can be a very good search engine, definitely. It can be an assistant to content creators. It gives you ideas. I mean, it can even create a fictional story about whatever. I mean, I asked it to write something about a pink elephant that can fly, and tell me a story about this unique creature, and it did. So it can be creative because it has seen millions of patterns of text. So it's good at stitching together many things that are coherent, and that's not a small achievement. But that's one thing, and saying AGI and understanding and cognitive and reasoning capabilities, I think this is unlearned observation, to say the least. There's nothing like this happening.
Right. Let's dive a bit. Yeah. So let's dive a bit deep about this AGI claim. That is actually just the last couple of days coming up more and more, where they now with giving extensions to it with the Wolfram Alpha integration, with opening up to other applications, making it, of course, aware of what just happened now, with many more sources of data, right? And then you can read from the companies behind this. In fact, AI experts there, we are going towards AGI now. I was reading up on one of your posts where you explained what is common sense knowledge, and there are different types of learning. And I suppose they know this as well. I mean, and they're trying to maybe close the deficiencies now with that. Is that what's happening now, or how do you see this? And or is this still not leading anywhere to more general knowledge and to this AGI claim?
Right. I mean, as far as AGI, I think any talk of AGI right now is, to be polite, immature. But even to have AI, forget AGI, to have real AI, we have to be careful. I mean, first of all, there's a problem in open AI being open. They say open AI.
Used to be, that was the idea.
Yeah, they're not open at all, because after all, there's an ethical issue here, because they might be misleading young scientists and researchers into thinking this paradigm is the way to go, while probably they're using something else. I mean, how do we know that they're not using symbolic reasoning over knowledge graphs, which have nothing to do with deep learning or machine learning even? Which brings me to my, probably you're alluding to a post I wrote about learning and the fact that not everything is learning. We learn skills. We don't learn knowledge. I mean, I learned how to ride a bike. I learned how to play a guitar, although I haven't yet. I've been trying. You don't learn incrementally by observation or experience that water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. We are told, or we deduce that scientifically. So not everything is learned. There's a big folk. I mean, it's a runaway train, learning. As a matter of fact, most of the knowledge that matters to how the universe functions is not learned, it's discovered or deduced. The world doesn't care if I know how to ride a bike or not. The universe doesn't care if I know how to play guitars or not. But the universe will not be the same if the circumference of a circle is not 2 pi r. So the factual knowledge that makes the world runs the way it is running is not learned. It's discovered or deduced. So learning is so if that's the case, then how are we going to learn how we think, where there's a system underneath? Not everything is recognizing patterns. I mean, there are it's a small skill in the cognitive machinery that we have. We do pattern recognition, but also rats do pattern recognition, and mice. They recognize images and they recognize sounds, and some of them are better than us even. An eagle can see from 2 miles away. So it is a skill, pattern recognition, but it's very low in terms of in the cognitive ladder. I mean, it's one of those that ants even have. But to scale that into cognition and reasoning is absurd. So I have a question. First of all, I'm not sure that OpenAI is not using technologies that they're not being honest about, and that's why there's now concern that they have not been very open in terms of the real tech. All we hear is how they are doing, the output, the function, not how it's been done. But putting all that aside, AGI is so far away that when I hear about it in the context of large language models, I'm baffled. It's to that point. And you have others that speak of existential threat to humanity. And like, tone it down, people. I can fool this thing with one query, okay? Sleep well, everything is okay. There's nothing happening here except scale and big money. Big money was put on machinery beyond imagination. I mean, the carbon emission of what's happening is more than the driving of an entire city. So it's big muscles, and I memorized everything humanity has ever been said. So I would look smart every now and then. That's all. There's no AI. There's no understanding. I'm being a little bit probably for those that are excited about the output they see. I might sound like, huh? What is it?
Party pooper.
Yeah, exactly. But ethically, we should say that because if we believe otherwise, it's unethical to science to stifle all other research and put an end to what the most penetrating minds in the history of cognitive science and logic and philosophy and metaphysics and ontology, and say all of that doesn't matter. And for a young kid, everything is transformers and attention and large language model. Something that I can explain in half an hour will produce human cognition. Are you serious? So ethically, and I know it's not popular. Some of my friends tell me you should have played the game because you can. If anyone can play the game, you could have. Right. But it's not me. I ethically, we should say the good, the bad, and the ugly. And there's a lot of good. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, this thing is a huge advancement, and on a technical side, it's a huge software engineering achievement to make millions of processors work together to achieve this monumental feat. So in a second, in less than a second, you get a reply that sounds coherent. That's a huge achievement technically. So the software engineer in me is impressed.
Right.
But the cognitive scientist in me, the AI scientist in me, and the ethical person in me is saying, guys, tone it down. This is what this can do. And all these claims, no, go back. It's okay to reread Immanuel Kant and reread Frege and Russell, because we will go back to that science. And I have no doubt. I have no doubt. We've climbed 20 more steps on the ladder, but we're going to discover, or even 200 steps. We built a ladder that has 2,000 steps, but we're going to discover that the way to the moon is to go down and try something else.
I see. Technically, maybe just two things. They always say that they use the reinforcement learning, human supported. That's one thing. And then the other, which I also said at the beginning, they're trying to get the deduction part by now integrating things like Wolfram Alpha. So certainly they know the physics and the math, right? And then that's there as well. So is this additional components that make it, I'm sure, make it better or so, but does this lead anywhere where you get more satisfied, or is still at that end?
Yeah, this is there are two things there. The integration with Wolfram is the biggest news now. First of all, it's good. They're trying to get their hands on real scientific facts as part of their which is an admission, by the way, that not everything can be learned. Like I was saying, factual knowledge is not learned. Okay, you have to be instructed, right? Okay, the folk meaning is that I learned that in high school. You didn't really learn it. You were instructed. You were told of the fact. Scientific knowledge is discovered. It's not learned. So there's an admission here that not everything is learned. We learn how to recognize patterns, but we don't learn facts, scientific facts. Okay, so that's I don't think they ever thought of that, but that's an admission that there's a limit to learning. Okay, the rest is deduction. Okay, but will that really create a qualitative difference? I doubt it. It will simply answer more questions that now it looks silly answering them, especially if they have to do with mathematical reasoning and so on. So now it has a bigger repository of information. And the reason I'm saying that is the paradigm itself does not, no matter how many sources of information it puts its hand on. And I suspect that now they use even knowledge graphs for factual knowledge, like X was born in, or X is married to, which is triple store facts in a big knowledge graph. But all of that, which complements neural networks that do something very simple, that they are good at prediction, and if I see enough text, I can predict with some probability what is a good thing to follow up with this. That's all they're doing. I complement this with factual knowledge, whether from Wolfram or some knowledge graph. All of that is not going to help in doing what a 4-year-old does. Common sense reasoning. Why? Because we have in our DNA, probably, I don't want to get to that because it's still a big unknown. I can hardly talk about what I know, imagine about what I don't know, but somehow the laws of the universe have been imprinted in us. Like a calf, it can walk after 2 minutes and start eating on its own. Nobody taught her anything. That's why we're here, because we survived, because we learned how the world works and we adapted to it. That's a good survival mechanism. That's how you can survive, right? That stuff, large language models know nothing about. And having another resource of facts, okay, will make me answer more questions. But all of that is good. That's the good, and the good, the bad, the ugly. But to say that this is the road to creating human level intelligence is another story altogether. So we have to be careful. Like, yeah, it's a good technology. I mean, and I can see many uses for this. Imagine programmers want to learn how to program, and this thing can give them the skeleton of a program, even if it's not perfect, but it's a great aid. If I'm a content creator and I want to write some story, it gives me ideas from all the text it has seen. It can stitch together so many creative things that, hey, I got a new idea. So my only issue is talk about AGI in the context of large language models is really childish, even to that degree. And I might in this statement have now offended hundreds of people, if not more. It's childish.
Okay.
It means you really don't understand what is human-like cognition. And I'm thinking of putting out a challenge, actually. Even someone from OpenAI who's working on this, and they have an advantage, they know how it works. We go live and they make an example that impresses people. I make real time. I make an example that makes it look stupid. And we'll see who quits first. I can always make it look silly. So you can see in it whatever you want to see. My only issue is be careful. This is a great technology, but tone it down. This has nothing to do with AGI.
Okay. So yeah, let's leave the AGI part for now, although you could talk forever, but I hope they're listening and they indeed tone down a bit, because that was the message I could see everywhere in the last couple of days going down this path. Generative AI, which ultimately with GPT-4, it's becoming as well, since multimodal, right? I mean, it was already for text, but so I found this cartoon here, which I found a bit funny. You actually said at the beginning, it is generative and it creates great stuff, and it's creative. So the bots, the machine gets to do here, which the cartoon says, the fun stuff, right? Create text and pictures, and we are still doing the silly stuff with looking at our email inboxes all day long, and even when we're walking. Right. So what is the generative part of it, and how valuable is that? Are we getting there? Is that something then real generative? Maybe one question, and then the other one is, to me, it was a bit surprising that machines seem to get very generative, creative. I always thought that's a big difference between humans and machines, that we are actually creative and they are not, and suddenly they're much more creative. At least that's what it appears. So what's your thought on that?
Yeah, by the way, I like this cartoon too. I've seen it before. It's very telling. It has other implications than the good one you mentioned, but I mean, you can say a lot about this amazing drawing. Okay, the generative quote unquote generative part. I use the term generative because that's what people are saying, but true generative, no, they're not. I mean, there's nothing new.
Mm.
Let me be careful technically what I'm saying here. They are not saying anything that they have created, these models.
Mm.
These models are doing, I mean, the analogy can be in pictures, but it's the same idea. In pictures, and I've done this experiment, you can bring 10,000 images and do a mesh between them, like a union or intersection or transposition, and get a unique image that's none of the 1,000, but it's a coherent image. And the coherence here is the smart part. And this is done by GANs, generative adversarial networks. Two networks compete against each other. One keeps correcting the other until a plausible person, let's say, is in the picture. One of them keeps saying, no, this is not a person. The other tries again until it looks like a person. But actually, it's a mesh of millions of images that it saw. So it's not doing anything new itself. It's a permutation or combination of things that it saw out there. There's no creativity, really, and thus no generative, right? So it's, and you can imagine the combinations are near infinite. It's not infinite. Infinity is bigger than any number even, right? But the number is so astronomical that you will never have seen this combination done before, right?
Right.
Technically, the permutation, the number of combinations you can make is astronomical, especially if you read even just 2 million images. I can do the math for you. The combinations you can make are astronomical because I can put this pixel with this with this with this. So it looks like I can create combinations that you would never have seen, and it looks for you original, right? But it's still playing with what it saw. Nothing. So if we keep doing this for a long, long time, we will run out of combinations that it can generate. Let's put it this way. Humanity doesn't function like this. We can always generate new things, a melody that no one has ever thought before. Sure, we also combine things like Isaac Newton said. What I know is because I stood on the shoulders of giants. We all take things from here and here and stitch them together in a unique way, but we add our own slant on them, our own human touch. We add this 1% that makes generative models do all that without adding anything because they have nothing to add. I don't know if I explained it. So that 1% that Isaac Newton added to everything he stole created Isaac Newton. Large language models don't have this 1% because they don't know anything. They just know what they saw, right? But they do create unique combinations that nobody thought about before, right? So they're generative in that sense. But should we replace a human creativity, even if it's that additional 1% that we build on every, and that's why discoveries don't come every day. They take 200 years because that 1%, we only add 1% or 2 at the most. Even Albert Einstein, he added 1% to physics, but that 1% was huge. These models don't have that 1% even. They can create amazing combinations from what they saw, but they don't have that 1%.
Right. That of
So
course,
I don't know if I explained it, but
I
that's
thought you did well. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That of course brings up lots and lots of follow-on questions. I don't have that much time for all of that, but plagiarism ultimately and privacy. Maybe start with plagiarism is something. Okay, they're not creative. That means they stole it from somewhere else, and therefore we have one lawsuit after the other. How do you see that?
Yeah, but the unique combination is impressive. Is impressive, and technically, the computer scientist in me, that's what I'm impressed about, because they're not stitching apples and oranges. They're very good in stitching things in a coherent way. Whether it's images, like they don't put the nose above the eyes. They're very or in text, the following text is coherent with. So that's the brilliance, the achievement I see here. But you're right, that brings up issues of intellectual property rights, and it brings up legal and ethical issues, because now you're telling me, and actually here I'm going to report an experiment. I wanted to record it and put it out on the web. Now you're telling me that you're giving me new information that I couldn't have found anywhere else. But really, you're not giving me new information. You're bringing information in a smart way, I have to admit, in a brilliant way. But it's basically stuff that you put together from many sources, right? So accidentally, because these things are statistical, and sometimes you might bring something up that looks so damn familiar. I'm going to say, this is mine, man. Hey, hold. And it has happened already. So yes, this will bring up, because they don't do, people have to understand the generative part here should be replaced by the combinatorial part, or the permutation, or it's a permutational AI, not generative. There's nothing new that these models, they themselves can create.
Okay.
Go back.
Yeah, that's understood. Yeah. So the privacy
actually,
part.
I actually tested that. Again, every time I think of something, I go test it, and lo and behold, as they say. So what I did is I went to 2 of my papers, 3 actually, I put, and they're all about the same subject. And I grabbed 1 paragraph from each, and I put them in ChatGPT, and I said, can you continue this essay? And I picked unique combinations that I know they will not have been memorized by ChatGPT from anywhere else. They're so unique to how I write and how I think about a certain thing. And the continuation was from my papers, verbatim. In other words, because I know how these systems work, they try to find similar, by similar, they're good at similarity, cosine similarity of vector embeddings. They try to find similar stuff that coherently can be continued. So they didn't find something so strong by similarity, except my own stuff. And when I read the rest, it was exactly verbatim from the rest of my papers. So I proved the point that there's no generative here. It's, I'll bring you stuff that I saw from the millions of things I looked at, in such a combination that for you, it looks like a new thing, right? So there will be legal issues, but there's also an ethical issue. You didn't tell me anything new. This is stuff that you saw elsewhere. Now, some of my friends tell me, but Walid, most of education is bringing you stuff you've never seen before, even though I have nothing new to tell you. True. I mean, that's why this has a value. All I'm saying is, don't replace that amazing ability that we reached as a humanity with AGI. That's all. So this is where I'm coming from. Let's define things the way they are, technically, scientifically, business-wise, ethical-wise. Let's say it how it is. That's all.
Right. When I speak to my friends, family, then they usually are not so hype about this. They're not so technical like me. So good or bad for them, whatever. But they see more like, oh my God, I love to draw on a canvas, and now if I try to tell them try it out, because it creates fantastic things, and they don't even want to try it out because they think takes away their fun and everything. But basically is taking the heat out of it by saying, okay, we should not lose our motivation to create something, because that would have been my question then. If ChatGPT is the Hemingway, then of course you will not create new Hemingways, because there's no motivation to sit down and crank out something like he did. That's just an example, right? So that thing will never do that. Therefore, you should continue being creative. So that's
of course. I mean, ironically, they called the image generative images DALI. No, the future daddy should keep working on being crazy. I mentioned Isaac Newton and his 1% that he added to the shoulders of giants he stood on. No, we should not, because these things will play around with what they memorized. That's it. But that 1% that humans can add, we should keep doing, because that new crazy painting or crazy symphony or crazy theory, it will not come out of these. They will put together stuff that they've seen before. It's a monumental feat as a search engine, as an encyclopedia, as even an assistant to give me ideas, because I don't have time to stitch together all ideas that were ever created. So it's an amazing technological achievement, has a lot of practical applications, but the narrative, we should be careful not to misguide people. We should not, like you are saying, a great point. We should not discourage a young artist from thinking machines will be better than them. No, not at all. Or a future scientist or a future novelist, or take ideas, use these systems, even if you're an artist, let this thing create some weird concepts for you and be inspired. Why not? But we should be careful. The narrative is important, because I have friends that truly believe these things are creative. I explained the technical part of the generative, quote unquote, part of these systems, that they're not really generating anything. They're permuting and combining things in a very amazing way that is, I mean, awe-inspiring. It's like, wow. But no, we should be careful how we write the story, how we write the narrative, especially in public media. I hear things, I read things. Come on, what are you saying? No. So
I hear you, Walid. So time is basically up, but let me wrap it up with something that maybe you want to contribute with your research work, right? Without now going too deep, but summarizing what is your life motivation, what you would like to bring to the AI field, or whatever you call it. Make it then even better for humanity, right? Describing it in the right way. So maybe wrap up with that. If you can summarize a little bit what your ambition is, maybe that's the right word.
Sure. I mean, my passion has been language, not for language sake, but language is the only unique human ability. It's the only ability that's unique to the human species. And it's not by accident that language and thought and reasoning come together. So language is a mirror of the mind, really. I mean, we externalize thoughts, and that takes you into psychology, into cognition, into reasoning, into intentions, and all kinds of big questions and about the mind, really. So that's my passion, and I have been working on I believe we should revive the Leibniz dream, the lingua universalis. There's or Jerry Fodor calls it the language of thought, which is not English, it's not Chinese, it's mentalese. It's the mental language, the inner language. And there are many brilliant people that have given hints as to how that might look, each for a different reason. But if you a good robber and you know how to steal what matters from each and put them together. So that's my passion. I've been working, I published about that. What is that language neutral language of thought? How do we represent thoughts internally? And if we figure that out, it's a huge, first of all, we can seamless language translation for humanity. I mean, I speak X and you hear me and whatever you want to hear me. But more than that, it will tell us really a lot about the mind, how we think, and it will be a huge thing. Some of it is amazing, that how universal many notions of language are. I can get into examples, but I think that will be huge if we discover what is that language faculty, what is that inner mentalese, the language of thought, or the lingua universalis. What is that? How do we express our thoughts? How do we represent them inside? That's my real passion. Other than that, I have to work on more practical things also, everyday stuff, using NLP and using AI. But you can do both. But my real passion is discovering the internal language of the human species.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Walid. It was fun to listen to you, and yeah, great that you share your cautious thoughts here about this new development, and wish you good luck to create the 1 or 2% as well for your passionate research, and yeah, and hope to see you one day in person.
I'm trying.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. You take care. Have a great day. Thank you. Cheers. Bye bye. Ciao.
Thank you.